Hello and welcome to the Talking City podcast, coming to you from the Manchester Evening News. My name is Joe Bray, joined by Simon Bajkowski, and a bit of a weird weekend, Simon, because we were sat at the Etihad and strange game. City won, didn't necessarily play well, and then 24 hours later, the top of the league, only unbeaten team in the top 5 leagues in Europe. And I think a bit of time has made the result look a bit better, but in that second half, it was a little bit of a slog against Southampton, it felt like.
Yeah, I watched Match of the Day 2 last night, and Virgil van Dijk got asked afterwards, obviously he scored Liverpool's first. He got told, good corner, great flick on, so easy for you. And he was like, well, yeah, all right, you could have scored it then. And it was that kind of I think you forget sort of how difficult a lot of things that look easy are on a football pitch. Even to continue with the Arsenal-Liverpool theme, Rice whipping in a free kick from Marino's heading, you would be like, oh, why can't Liverpool defend that? They must defend against that every single time. And no, sometimes it's just simple things are done really, really well. I mean, that is the pet philosophy throughout. And yeah, City weren't great against Southampton, but they also faced something that they don't normally face. So they kind of had to take a bit of time to work out what was going on. And they still kind of dominated the game in terms of chances created and the quality of those chances created. They could have won by 3 or 4. So I think it didn't feel that kind of exciting because everyone was like, well, they're going to win 5-0. Southampton have been rubbish and they keep playing football, so City will just steamroller them. So the fact they only won 1-0, everyone was a bit like, oh, well, that wasn't a great result. But, it was a big 3 points and City were very, very, very happy with it. And like you say, sit top of the table after 9 matches, which is almost a quarter of the season. So, things are starting to shape up.
Yeah, I think I was driving back from the game thinking, it might be a bit negative this week in terms of how they're playing. They're not quite, pushing teams aside like they usually do. They played the bottom 2 teams in the league and scraped past both of them. But actually, you take a step back, you see what Liverpool and Arsenal are doing, and that's probably a good sign. And Guardiola's quite keen to stress that as well. I think we'll come on to, are we sort of asking too much of City at the moment? But let's talk about the game. You mentioned Southampton did something slightly different. Guardiola was full of praise for Russell Martin to the point where you actually had to step back and say, is it the same Russell Martin is it the same Russell Martin who's bottom of the league? But he is one of them managers who has a style and will not deviate from it at all. And I think this game justified that for him because Southampton had more of the ball in the first half. That's not often we see that at the Etihad or against City at all, especially a sort of top of the league versus bottom of the league dynamic. And they were, I was writing the post in our blog of Southampton have had more of the ball, but they've not yet had a shot on goal. And then they go clear and smack the bar, and it's a proper wake up call. They had a lot of the ball, not many chances, but probably were justified in a narrow defeat. And if you can say that, if you can say they deserve that, their performance wasn't one that was a team that deserved to get battered.
No, it was a strange game in that, as many games tend to at the Etihad, it took place in the opposition third. But unlike many games, it was the opposition who had the ball rather than City. Southampton just kind of passed it around City for 30 minutes in that first half. They just kind of never made it beyond the halfway line. And City were getting frustrated. Phil Foden was sort of arms up in the air whenever he felt like Savinho or someone wasn't kind of backing him up in the press. It felt like one of those moments where, Southampton are sort of patiently biding their time, waiting for something to open up. And City are waiting for Southampton to make a mistake. There were a number of times where Aaron Ramsdale didn't look particularly comfortable on the ball with sort of limited passing options. So you wonder sort of who's going to crack, and usually it's the opponents. But like you say, this time, so that first minute of injury time in the first half, Jack Stevens puts Cameron Archer clear, and he should do better probably, but he hits the bar. And that, if they'd scored that, then it would have been seen as a first half masterclass from Southampton. But because he doesn't, you can't take too much away from the performance nevertheless. And, they went behind to a goal that they weren't too thrilled about conceding, but it's still really, really good from Erling Haaland to score the goal that he does in, what was it, the 5th minute? So another early goal to put City in control.
Yeah, I think the conversation behind us in the press box was on Wednesday. He scored from about 10 yards up in 10 feet up in the air, and this one was on the floor as he was falling, and couldn't get two more different finishes. But that is what Haaland does, isn't it? He can score the brilliant, but also the scrappy and the sort of unfashionable ones. And I thought Haaland had a very interesting game, and I talked up he was going to score 4 or 5, and do you triple captain him? And I did, and probably regret that now. He got a goal, but had a few chances to score a few more, and it just felt like a bit of an off day for him. And again, we're saying Southampton did very well. They made a very good account of themselves. But if Haaland finishes some of those chances he's got at the back post, or a couple of the headers that have gone straight to Ramsdale, City do win 4 or 5-0. And we're saying, oh, well, they're doing really well and deservedly so. And that result was always coming. I think the Super 6 was won this week, and it had the breakdown of who predicted what score. I think it was 0.2% predicted City to beat Southampton 1-0.
Yeah.
It's still a win, but everyone expected a much bigger one, and that sort of summed up for me. Just, yes, 3 points is 3 points. I think Guardiola and Bernardo and Nunes maybe have said, doesn't matter if we win 4 or 5-0, we just want the 3 points. That's the most important thing. But yeah, I thought it was. I think time has definitely changed my view of the game, because on Saturday I was thinking, it's quite a lot of negatives, and now those negatives have actually turned into a bit positive, really.
Yeah, I think so, and especially with the injury situation, like nobody wants to bang on about injuries. Again, quite funny from Van Dijk last night, asked about Arsenal's situation. But 6 players out for City, and 5 of them you would say are feasible first team starters. So City are not in a great shape in terms of their options and the freshness of all of their players, and they did sort of push themselves. I for a long time I thought it was going to be the first game of the season where Pep didn't use a substitute. I think Gundogan came on in like the 86th minute, and Stones came on in the 96th with like 10 seconds to go. So it all the players had to put in a heck of an effort, and to see like Edison catching the ball in the 90th minute and dropping to the floor, and to see like Bernardo Silva just like no energy left, and Haaland no energy left. They really put everything into getting the win, and it could have been 3 or 4-0. It wasn't, but they made sure that they won, as they so often do, which is why they so often win titles. And yeah, it's funny because it was like the worst game of all the Saturday kickoffs, really. But it may well, it was one of the most important results of the weekend, certainly from the top end of the table perspective, because it just keeps them going. And the more kind of, leeway they have to be able to drop points, the better position they're in. So to be top of the table after 9 games for a team that always starts slowly and had loads of players at the Euros and has 6 players out injured is very good going.
Yeah, I think we said last week after the Wolves game that could be a really, really important 3 points. I think this is firmly under the same category, even if City might have expected more. It's the points that are the most important, and the table now reflects that after Liverpool and Arsenal drawing. And it was, I think the injuries are catching up with City a bit. It's one of those where you think you expect these games to be the ones where you ramp up a few goals and get those goal difference, but you don't necessarily win titles on goal difference unless you've got the points, and you need the points first. And there's been a few instances in recent years where the team with the most goal difference has come second or third. It is the points that matter, and that felt like that kind of performance today. And like you say, the substitutions. This was a prime game for Guardiola to, like he did on Wednesday, rotate his players, bring on. I'm trying to remember who's on the bench, but Gundogan and Stones and Kovacic was on the pitch, wasn't he? But those sort of players, like he did against Sparta Prague, just rotate those names. Bring McAtee on, who originally wasn't on the team sheet. It was Oscar Bob, which was a 30 seconds of excitement where we thought, I don't know, is he back from injury? No, it was just a typo. And then suddenly they were warming up for half an hour, and Guardiola isn't even looking in their direction. So there will be rotation coming up, but that opportunity was gone. And Guardiola always says, doesn't he, like the game right now is the most important. We'll deal with whatever happens afterwards. And what did he say after the game? He said, if Wolves and Southampton played at this level and they're bottom of the league, then that just shows what we've got to expect for the rest of the season, because they have two very good teams and have probably challenged City more than any other team this season, would you say?
I mean, Arsenal were up there, certainly, weren't they? But yeah, I mean, two very good performances, and two teams who kind of belied their performance in the table, their position in the table. And yeah, it's one of those where sort of the Wolves game, you got the last minute winner, but the Southampton game in particular sort of seems quite forgettable in isolation. But 5 games in a row they've won now in all comps. It's the best form of the season. And if, pretty unlikely, because they're going to probably be very under strength against Spurs in midweek. But if the Southampton game contributes to, 20 games unbeaten or 10 games won in a row, then it has to be significant. So it's one of those things where everything adds up. And certainly, speaking to Manu Akanji after the game, he was very, very, very happy. He was really upbeat with how they've played, and says, yeah, they can do more, they can play better, but like they're in a really good position. And for, like I say, the starts of the season, and also losing Rodri sort of physically, emotionally, and psychologically as well, getting over that hump, because last season, the whole of last season, basically, wasn't it? It was like they can't win without Rodri. And they've done it for pretty much the entirety of this season. So they feel like they're in a very good place. And the league tables would appear to back them up in that.
Simon, you were saying that it's sort of about the mentality of the team, and that's sort of more important than anything else at the moment. Akanji was happy after the game. That's where I lost you anyway.
Yeah, they're just very pleased with where they are, and after having a slow start to the sort of season with the Euros, and then the whole of last season was like, we can't win without Rodri, and they basically won all of this season without Rodri. He's barely played a game and won't play again. So they've sort of surpassed their own expectations almost of where they should be at this point in the season, and the league tables and everything would back up that they're in a very good place.
I'm just looking at the City's fixtures this season and the results. There's only really the Ipswich game where they've been in control for most of the game, in terms of they were ahead at half time and saw that game out. Against Chelsea, the second goal was in the last 5-10 minutes. Against West Ham, the third goal to kill it off was the last few minutes. Then you've got Brentford, a 1-goal win, Arsenal a draw, Newcastle a draw, Fulham a 3-2 win. Never really in full control, especially with that Fulham one at the end. Then Wolves, then Southampton. There's not been a real City dominant performance in the league yet. There's been a couple in the Champions League, and the Watford game was mostly in City's control in the Carabao Cup. But it sort of backs up that yes, City are winning, they're doing well, and that is a title winning quality. But yeah, they probably have for a while been doing this, and it's not just this week where all the games have been tight and they've not been at the best and they've had to grind out and just do what they've got to do. until literally listening to your last answer and looking at the results. That's sort of gone under my radar at least.
Yeah, and you can only beat what's around you, and you can, all you can do in the league is be better than the teams who you're competing with, and a very good result, sort of Arsenal drawing with Liverpool on Sunday. But also, I think City will have been quite encouraged by the fact that Arsenal had Liverpool where they wanted them at 2-1 and didn't do anywhere near enough to turn that 2-1 into 3-1. And then suddenly, Gabriel goes off injured, and it's the worst situation since the beginning of football, and they concede, and it's 2-2. But they had the chances at, well, they had the ball at 2-1 to be able to do more with it, because Saka had shown in the first half he was explosive, destroyed Robertson. Arsenal did not do enough to get that win yesterday. Even Manchester United, on the back of a terrible refereeing decision, if they take any of the many chances that they missed, they wouldn't need to be talking about referees. So it comes back to sort of doing the basics, but like City are very good at doing what they need to do, and they're better at pretty much every other team in the league at doing what they need to do. And until the teams around them learn to be better at that, then they're going to find it very difficult to knock City off their perch.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you said at the start, doing the sort of basic and normal things well and consistently. Maybe that's going to be how City win the title this year, especially without some of the key players. I think you were saying Akanji said to you that he was asked, how are you playing without Rodri? And he said, well, we're still unbeaten. We've not lost yet. And it is that sort of thing that they're very happy with how they're doing it. And it often goes overlooked, doesn't it, that City they don't just play nice football. They are very good at just winning games and doing the dirty things or the unfashionable things that they need to do and keep on going. They've got a couple of late wins this season or late points, and that is the difference come the end of the season. And yeah, I think the Arsenal game, I didn't watch it, but just going off, even for example, what Roy Keane was saying about the Arsenal mentality, sort of backs up what all the City players were saying in September, that Arsenal came to City and didn't want to win the game, but Liverpool will try and win the game whenever they've played them. So I think if City were watching that, again, I've not seen it, I can just go off what a lot of people are saying. It sounds like they will be far more fearful of Liverpool than Arsenal, and especially City are getting those results against the sort of lower teams in the league. When Arsenal went to Bournemouth and didn't win, they sort of threw that away. And I mean, City go to Bournemouth next week and could find it incredibly difficult, and probably will do, but it feels like they're going to be a bit better prepared for a battle and a game like that than maybe Arsenal will. I did see one person comparing Arteta to Mourinho in his sort of his approach of approaching these games, where we've got a result, let's sit on it and protect it rather than go for another one.
Yeah, I think I saw Arsenal created 0.05 XG between going 2-1 up and Liverpool scoring in the 83rd minute. So basically didn't have any worthwhile efforts on goal. So, Liverpool obviously defended well, but Arsenal, there's just that feeling with them that, like you say, they're more content to protect a lead rather than stretch it. And City have done that at times, but also, City pushed forward at Wolves. They weren't happy with the point. They pushed on and got the rewards and things like that. And yeah, it's just that mentality in them that means they never give up. And I don't think there will be anyone who's sort of fighting to say City have played really well since probably about August, like after that first international break after the West Ham game. They've not really played brilliantly, but I think because there's such high standards we're judging them against, it's like, well, they're not tearing every team apart. They're not winning the treble, are they? You kind of forget that they are doing a lot of things very well still. And, even sort of Akanji said at the weekend, we're much improved with transitions, he feels. And you sort of think, well, conceded a lot of goals to transitions this season, but then, also you count the transitions that go against them. You don't necessarily count the ones that they stop, becoming a threat. And I think it's just that they've become so good that you sort of forget how good they are fundamentally, and they do the fundamentals so well that it gives them points even when they're not at their best. And I don't think they'll be at the best for a while. But Pep did say on Friday that he doesn't expect any low blocks from Tottenham or Bournemouth or Brighton. So perhaps in the next few games we'll see a bit more expansive stuff.
I feel like that's a bluff. I think he's wishful thinking from that. I'm sure someone has said in the past that winning when you're not playing well is a good sign. So City must be doing something right. We'll come back after a short break and discuss a little bit more about Southampton and look ahead to Tottenham and just who could play in that Tottenham game. Hello, welcome back to the Talking City podcast. Just a point that you made on just before we went to a break, I think I remember De Bruyne saying after that West Ham game, after that first block of fixtures, that they were surprised how well they were playing. The squad were not expecting to be playing that well, so they were probably expecting more of what we've seen since. And yeah, injuries take a big chunk of that in terms of why they're maybe not at the most fluent. But it is when you got players like De Bruyne saying we didn't think we'd be blowing teams away, you should probably listen to them and think about why. And I always find it interesting, like there was a Candy comment you referred to about the transitions. What they focus on is so different to what we focus on because it's there every day. They've got the meetings, they've got Guardiola in their ear, picking out things that we'd never even think of. And what they're proud of is always different. And when we see into the dressing room, it's those little things rather than the bigger picture. Guardiola said something after the game, and he's referenced it a few times, and it tracks back a little bit to what you were saying in the last podcast about sort of the XG that City expect from every game, or in the book that you've written, and how they look at winning the title. He basically said, if we look at every game, have we done more than the opponents? Have we basically bettered the XG of the opponents? If we have, we can pat ourselves on the back and say we've done all we can to win the game. And that was the case in the Southampton game and probably the majority of the games that City have played. So you might have a game where Haaland doesn't finish those chances, or you have a really good goalkeeper against you, or something like that. But they're the sort of consistencies, aren't they, that City need to just keep doing, and that's why the results are coming. And that's why if you keep going, those goals will come, and you keep getting those 1-goal wins. Those 1-goal wins don't happen by accident.
No. And also, they created enough that they could have won by more. As well as Southampton played, it would have been sort of against the run of play if they had taken a point or anything. City want a net XG of 1.4 for the season to win the league, and they're currently at
I should have given you a heads up about this question because you could have had
they're currently at 1.38, so they're on the money for 1.4. So they've got to be very happy with that. It's they're doing everything they need to do, and it's like you say, we don't really know what the full plan is and what's going on and what they are trying to do in every game. I would think at the start of it, Guardiola might not have wanted for the 11 players he had to use quite as much energy as they did. I think he said it. Did he say after the game he didn't like them running?
Yeah, he wasn't happy that Southampton made them run a lot, but also I put the credit on Southampton for making them run. And it was in relation to the possession that Southampton had, especially in the first half, and probably the wider picture of we've got no players, so please don't make them run.
Yeah, well, that's it. If you've not got the ability to make too many changes, the last thing you want is to have your players running. And I think they will do a lot of running at Tottenham as well. So, City were forced into an uncomfortable situation on Saturday, but they've come out of it with a win. And yeah, I think Guardiola says he only starts looking at the table after like 10 games. Well, we're nearly there. And City are top of the league. It's Bournemouth on Saturday, isn't it? That they've got to try and go top of the league to try and keep that top spot. I'm just checking who Liverpool at home to Brighton and Arsenal away to Newcastle in the 12:30. They love going to Newcastle, don't they? So City in a very good position, and it does feel a bit like City's performances have sort of, because we've been focusing on what they haven't got, we've kind of not missed, but not maybe appreciated how well they have done. Also the fact that a big chunk of the season has gone by already.
Yeah, well, if it's 9 games in, they've played almost half of the opponents they've got to play, and you would say they're doing all right. Again, as ever on this podcast, I'm convincing myself that it wasn't that bad, and the opinion I started with, I've completely abandoned already. In terms of XG, we mentioned it before. Haaland missed a few. Should we be worried that a few of those aren't going? There was a couple at the back post where maybe one he could have gone with his right foot or left. The one he headed back, you're thinking if he gets that on target, it's a goal. And I'm not just saying this from the point of view of someone who put him as triple captain, but he could have had a few more there.
Maybe it's because I didn't put him as triple captain. I actually thought he played well and thought it was encouraging that he was on the end of those chances. I think the one at Savinho at the back post he should tuck away, where he goes with his left when he probably should go with his right. But then look at me telling Erling Haaland how to finish. He had a good chance in the first half that was a very good save. He had a header in the second half that was headed off the line by Taylor Howard-Bellis. So those are sort of, on any other day, they both go in, and he scored 3 rather than 1. So especially after a number of games where he's not had a sniff, I thought it was good for him that he was in the mix, sort of having those chances, and his scoring rate over his City career and his whole career will tell you that, yeah, if those come to him again, like it was a freak occurrence for him to only get 1, because normally significantly outperforms his expected goals and things like that. So you sort of, I wasn't as much bothered by him not getting as many goals. I thought that was sort of, I would rather him have those chances and only score 1 than not have those chances at all.
It's the irony, isn't it? We've spent weeks saying, "Oh, he's not getting any sniff." All the defenders are putting 6 or 7 defenders on him, and he can't get anywhere. And then the moment he gets a bit of space and gets those chances, we're saying, "Well, why isn't he scoring them?" It's
yeah, and also like it was a really good goal in the 5th minute or however soon it was. Like it was really well taken, and again, kind of underrated because it was a lot harder than it looked for him to score that goal, and Southampton's whole game plan was on stopping him, and 5 minutes in they can't. So the impact that has on a game and the control it gives to City in terms of the scoreline and what they want to do with the game is invaluable. So even whatever came after, he'd still essentially won the game for City.
And if he doesn't score that, we see then how the game goes and how Southampton grow into it. That turns into a really nervous second half if City need a goal. And obviously it can be different, and City might have put more forward if they needed a goal. But I like your comment before. It's a freak occurrence that he only scored 1, which just sums up his incredibly high standards that he's set. A player scoring more than a goal a game is, and we're asking, should he have done more? Could he have done more? The assist came from Mateus Nunes. Let's give him a bit more praise to somewhat balance out the criticism we've given him over the few weeks and months. Back-to-back starts, I think only the second time he's done that for City. A goal and 3 assists in those, 4 assists in total, and he's joint top of the City assist standings. He's doing exactly what we said he needs to do, which is when you get a chance, make it count, and he's playing quite well, and I'm quite liking him on that left wing.
Yeah, he's still somewhat unpredictable, although I think he's in many ways more predictable than Doku can be on the left. And yeah, he's the sort of player that I don't imagine opposition teams enjoy playing against, in part because of that unpredictability, but also he's got loads of pace, he's got loads of strength. He's a really tall guy. He's very kind of unconventional, I suppose, the left winger, but he's just got plenty of attributes. And as he's shown in the last two games, he's got an eye for a ball and the ability to deliver it. You know, it was a lovely ball for Stones against Sparta, and then very nice cross again for Haaland to tuck away against Southampton. So yeah, he's taking his chance. And you know, City are where they are this season because the players who didn't play that much in the summer have done really well. Eureka Lewis's, Haaland, Edison, those kind of players. Nunes didn't really play that much either because he was sort of belatedly called up to the Portugal squad, but didn't do much. And you've sort of been asking, come on, this is your time to make your impact. And with a load of players out, he has done. So, you know, all credit has to go to him. And he can't have been unaffected by a lot of the criticism that he's had. But a lot of the criticism he's had has been because he's not been consistent or he's not taking his opportunities. But now he is taking his opportunities, so is rightly getting the praise. So to conclude, we're always right.
Yeah, let's just ignore all the does he ever fit in and does he have a future at City chat that we've had in the past. I didn't know that he had those deliveries on him. He looks like a player who should have a good set piece or a good crosser on him. But again, we've never seen it. And he's a couple of his assists, like you say, have been for Stones and for Haaland, really good crosses. He put some really good ones in for Haaland later on in the game. There was, I think, one that Haaland probably should have scored that would have given him another assist. We know he's got a decent shot, but I think there was an assist at West Ham, wasn't it? That was just through the middle. That was, I think, in that sort of inside left space. It's sort of where De Bruyne was for quite a while at the start of the season and when he played last season. He's not a traditional winger, but he's got all the little bits of all those players, and it feels like he's found a way to adapt that to Guardiola's system. And I asked Pep afterwards, I was like, I know you praised him and you're happy that he's getting the minutes, but has he done anything differently? And Pep basically said, no, it's just that he's got a run of games that he's never had before. Because sometimes you see players coming back and after the summer they've really knuckled down or something's changed, the mentality's been different, they've kicked on with their attitude, but it seems like he's always just been there and done the same and is getting those rewards now. Was it Nathan Ake who got lots of Pep praise for quite a while for just keeping a smile on his face for so long when he wasn't playing, and now he is one of the more important defenders when he is fit. So no, I'm just enjoying a player. I wrote that he's like a new signing really because we've just not seen him, and he's having that sort of impact and is averaging a goal or assist, I think, within around about an hour this season. So you can't really complain about that. And again, you would expect that he's got a run of games now, Spurs maybe, Bournemouth, Sporting, to kick on and have a go. Savinho got man of the match. He was one who kept putting those balls in for Haaland. I was thinking he can't do much more. He's literally said Haaland asks him every day, keep putting balls in to feed me. Your job is to give me assists. He basically did everything that Haaland could have wanted, and I was quite pleased that he got man of the match. He might not have been the one I went for, but it shows that he's getting a bit of recognition from whoever's picking that award.
Yeah, he's a worker, and he does a lot of stuff defensively that is underrated by many, but Pep really, really values it. And I thought he did all right. He should have had an assist if Haaland could have took that one in, but yeah, I didn't think he stood out too much in the game, to be honest. And it's sort of, again, it's always the burden when someone like Savinho or Doku plays. We're like, go on then, beat 5 men and score a goal because that's what you're in the team for. But he yeah, he's had a very good start, and I think it's easy to forget how young he is. But he has done very, very well for his age and for a young player coming across to the Premier League. I know he's played in La Liga all last season, but not many players come in and look this good in a Guardiola team this early, which is all credit to him.
I'm just hearing that Roy Keane quote. That's his job from what you said there. It's his job to put it in, and it doesn't matter if anyone gets on the end. He's just got to keep on doing it. I think the balance of someone like Nunes, or maybe if it's Grealish or Foden or Bernardo opposite someone like Savinho, I think it's slightly working better than just Doku and Savinho. And obviously Doku's not here, so we can't judge it. But it feels like the last couple of games without Doku has been a bit more inventive in terms of the attack. It's been a bit more, like you say, unpredictable on both sides, rather than just defenses can put three players on that side and stop the cross getting in. When it goes to the other side, load it up and stop it. So it probably takes the pressure off Savinho a little bit as well. I've closed the tab, but I know he's up for one of the awards at the Ballon d'Or, whether it's the main one or the young one. That is tonight at the time of recording. We're recording on Monday. Rodri is one of the favourites. There's conflicting reports of whether he's going to win it or Vinicius. Does it matter if he wins? It's clear that he's loved by everyone at the club. Everyone at the club thinks he should win it.
I think it will be a big deal when a City player wins the Ballon d'Or. That's what the club are waiting for to kind of cement their position in world football, and beating a Real Madrid star to a Ballon d'Or would be seen as very good. There's also the kind of sort of wider change in the game where suddenly the holding midfielders are the sexiest players in all of world football, and Rodri's been at the forefront of that, and it would be a change in the post Messi and Cristiano era to say, look, it's not just the one who scores a ludicrous amount of goals who gets the Ballon d'Or. But it's, ultimately it doesn't matter. And I'm tempted to say he was better the previous year than he was this last year. He didn't win the Euros last year. He won it this year. So, and that counts for something, or does it? Because Vinicius might win it and didn't do much in the Copa for Brazil. But it's similar, you can never read anything into these how the votes went. But I mean, I saw one set of leaked results that had like Haaland with more votes than Foden, and you think, well, Haaland had a much worse season than he did the year before, and Foden won City the league. So how's Haaland getting less vote? How's Haaland getting more votes? But I mean, the last year should have been Haaland's. That was Haaland not getting it last year was more egregious than if Rodri doesn't get it this year, I would say. But all City can do is put themselves where they're in the position to win it. And how amazing is it for City that for 2 years in a row, one of their players has been in the top two of the Ballon d'Or, whether Rodri goes on to win it or not. So there will be wild celebrations in Manchester, and with the delegation that have travelled to Paris for the award if Rodri wins it. But it's kind of the fact that he's up there and in the running sort of speaks to where City are in the game.
A full flight, that is, heading over to Paris. No room for any passengers. I think it feels like for Rodri it's a sort of accumulation of what he's done over a few years, and won the Champions League for City to sort of underline just how important he was, carried that form on. Maybe if he didn't win the Euros, it wouldn't have sort of led to the sort of the clamour and the drive for him to win. But he won what player of the tournament at the Club World Cup, albeit a smaller tournament, player of the tournament, I think, at the Euros. He was, it's the consistency of Rodri, I think. And Haaland, again, it's the standards of Haaland. He scored 36 goals in last season, and we're saying, it wasn't as good. It was just because he scored more the season before. if Haaland doesn't win it for the second year, which he probably won't, he'll look back and think he should have won it over that 2-year period, and that it will be the same logic that probably does win Rodri the award. But I would also say, Vinicius has been doing it for Madrid and helped them win the Champions League. And if Rodri hadn't won the Euros, I think Vinicius would be clear favourite, because he is probably on par with Haaland as one of the best attackers. So when I ask, does it matter? It's because there's no real answer. I don't think there's a firm standout in years where it's been definitely Messi or definitely Ronaldo. It's a conversation of 2 or 3 really brilliant players for very different reasons.
Yeah. And nobody's going to be robbed if they don't win it.
Well, I'm sure we will see on Twitter how disgraceful the decisions are. And the one picture I saw, and again, no idea if it's true or not, was that there was only a handful of points between Rodri and Vinicius. So that'll lead to sort of analysis of who voted for who and all this fallout of. I'm expecting the fallout before it happens. I'm going to pull you up on one quote that I might use as the headline quote of Rodri is the sexiest player, which I think can sell this podcast perfectly. Before we go, let's look ahead to Tottenham in the Cup. Guardiola said if there's any player with doubts, he's not going to risk them. There's no need to risk any player for the Carabao Cup, even if it risks going out. It feels like, in the past that he used the Carabao Cup to learn how to win tournaments and get that winning mentality going. They've been past that for a couple of seasons. They are bigger fish to fry than the Carabao Cup, and with all the games that they could be playing this season, it feels like it might do them a favour if they go out. But at the same time, winning is going to be useful. He says he'll probably play some players from the academy. He said that last round, but only called up 2. How do you see him? How serious do you think he will go with the talk of bringing players in from the EDS?
I think it'll be a pretty weak team. I think what were the 5 players on the bench, outfield players on Saturday, that were John Stones, Nathan Ake, James McAtee, Nico O'Reilly, and Gundogan. So I think those 5 will be 5 of the 10 outfielders, and obviously McAtee and O'Reilly are very, very green. And then there probably will be 2 or 3 who played on Saturday, but also I think he will also bring in some youngsters. The thing is about the Carabao Cup is that it's front loaded in the season. Like all of the games, or the majority of the games, are in the first half of the season. That can be good because if injuries aren't an issue, you can give players game time and sort of keep everyone bubbling over until the second half. But you want to peak in the second half of the season, and more than ever this season, with the Club World Cup being June to July, City are cautious about not overloading themselves in the first half of the season. So Guardiola's made it clear, I think, that that they're not going to give it the attention that they've given it in the past. And it will be a competitive team to play Spurs on Wednesday night, but I don't think it will be anything knocking on first strength, really.
Yeah, it's tricky for the academy players as well, because in any other circumstance you'd think give him a call up. He got a look at a lot of them in pre-season. Then he called up Caden Braithwaite for the last round, which was a bit of a surprise, but he did all right. He wanted a sort of left-sided centre back. Given that Ake's back, probably might not look at Braithwaite again, but who knows? I feel like if anyone's called up, it'll be maybe 1 or 2 rather than sort of multiple players. But also the EDS have an EFL trophy game on Tuesday, which you feel would be better for their development than sitting on the bench against Tottenham and maybe getting 2 or 3 minutes at the end. You feel like it might be better for them to have a full game against a League Two side where they've got to win to keep their qualification hopes alive. I guess we'll see who doesn't play, potentially players like Jacob Wright. He seems like he's a bit of a step above in terms of the first team thinking, and Nico O'Reilly seems a certain to start as well. But I wouldn't expect too many. I was wrong last time when I expected quite a lot, and then only one or two showed up. I think it will be the same for this round, and the rotation I think will more come with substitutions and who plays. I don't think Haaland will start. I think it'll be maybe Foden or McAtee in that sort of false nine role. I think players like Nunes and Foden will keep fresh. But yeah, it'll be an interesting one, and for that reason, I'm not really sure about a score prediction. Tottenham seem to be inconsistent and need a win especially after losing at the weekend. But you get the feeling Postecoglou will have a similar approach to Guardiola and maybe prioritise the league, even though, as you pointed out to me the other day, that this has to be one of their better chances to win a trophy. I think I'm going to go with a defeat. I think Tottenham will need the win a bit more than City. And even if there's not many changes, I think Tottenham will, or I think City will probably get the message from the manager not to exert as much energy, and he's made it clear the priority is Bournemouth this week. So I think that will play out. So I'll say a narrow defeat, but not as catastrophic as the Southampton one a couple of years ago, for example.
Yeah, I think 2-1 or something like that. I think City will be delighted at the end of this week if they're top of the Premier League table. That is the aim for this week. And if they're through in the Carabao Cup, that is an almighty bonus. But the league is the priority.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to January as well. If you can knock off 2 games in January, if you can qualify in the top section of the Champions League and knock off 2 games in January and February, that's 4 games you don't have to play. And you'd like, of course, you'd like to win the Carabao Cup, but City's success this season isn't going to be determined on whether they win the Carabao Cup or not. If they don't win the Premier League or Champions League or FA Cup or Club World Cup and only win the Carabao Cup, it's probably a disappointment. So I can understand fully why he's saying that. We will have all of the build up. I mean, Guardiola might say different tomorrow. He might go back on everything he said in his press conference, but there will be at Tottenham, or more accurately, Simon, you will be at Tottenham for the game, and we should be back, I think, later this week ahead of Bournemouth, and if not, we'll be back the week after. So thanks for joining us. As ever, give us a comment if you want us to answer any questions. Give us a like and a subscribe and a follow, and we'll continue to bring you Talking City podcasts.